Unfortunately, the reality for all of us, even if we're not old, maybe we're 40, 50, 60 years old, unfortunately, we're still rapidly approaching the tail end of our lives. So in today's video, I want to share with you some graphics to help illustrate this, to create a sense of urgency, to enjoy your journey today, and then maybe to encourage you to retire sooner rather than later. So let's jump in with some graphics here. This is what a normal 90-year-old human life looks like in months. You can see where somebody's born at birth. You can see the green is the 30th birthday. You can see 3/4 of the way down is the 60th birthday. That's where I'm at. And you can see where turning 90 is. And turning 90 is a very healthy lifespan for somebody. Most of us, unfortunately, are not going to have that long. But let me show you the same graph, but now let's do it in years instead of months. So each of these rows represents 1 decade. And you can see here's birth, and unfortunately we only get 9 rows, right? Each of the rows is a decade. So that's not a whole lot of time. And as I said, I'm 60, so I've got 3 rows of life if I'm lucky to live. And let me give you another illustration to point that out. If each of those years was a diamond, if each of those months, it would actually represent just a teaspoon of diamonds. So we don't have a lot of time in front of us. And before I move on and talk about my thoughts on this, I do want to credit Tim Urban for this. He writes a blog, has a website, Wait But Why? And this is from a blog post that he wrote 10 years ago. It's called Your Life in Weeks. I'm a big fan of Tim's, and he's got a newsletter. I highly suggest you think about signing up for it. This is not sponsored. I think he did a great job on this. Okay, so what does this mean to all of us? You know what it means is life is super precious. And if you think about how many more events you have with people that you love, it just shows you how rapidly time is going by and how little time we have. Think about, how many more holidays, how many more Thanksgivings might you have with your aging parents? How many more summer vacations might you have with either your young kids or your adult kids? How many more ski vacations do you have with your college buddies, or getting together once a year with old friends? How many more of those events do we have? And unfortunately, at some point when we get together with our friends, when we get together with our family, the reasons I do this YouTube channel is just to share what I've seen and to get that sense of urgency with all of us here. So, let me talk about some of the reasons to think about retiring as soon as you can. Getting the financial number is important. We're going to talk about it, but it's also the mental aspect that holds many of us back. So, what are the reasons that I think we should consider retiring sooner rather than later? The first one is our health. Our health is much more important than our wealth. And it's just natural for all of us to think in our 50s, if you're healthy, even in your 60s, like I'm 60 and I feel very strong. I can still run a 5K. I still lift weights. I do yoga. I take care of myself. But most of the things I want to do physically, I can do. And it's just natural for me to think, I'm going to be one of these outliers. I'm going to stay healthy till 80 years old. Knock on wood. I hope that ends up true. But I know the odds are dramatically against me. So the first one is our health isn't going to last as long as we think it will. And the importance of health during our retirement, during whatever amount of life that we have left, having healthy time is really important. So one of the reasons is our health, just so we can spend the time. We can get out of the rat race. We can get off of the pressure that's constantly on our shoulders through work, right? Think about how many hours you get to spend with your family, how much time you get to do the things you want to do and your passions. And for many of us, when we're working, work is 70, 80, 90% of our lives, and we have to squeeze in everything else around around life, and that can be the same thing with our health and taking care of our health. It's hard to go shopping for healthy foods. It's hard to go to the gym and work out. It's hard to take the time to cook healthy meals at home. So not only do we take the stress off of our shoulders, but it also gives us time to invest in our health. Okay, the second one, we've talked a lot about this here, is our time. Just how precious time is. And do we want to have to squeeze life into that 10, 20, 30% of the time where we're not involved in either working or getting ready to go to work, showering, things like that, and commuting back and forth to work? Do we want life to be that 30% slice, that 20% slice of our overall time? Or do we want our life, the things that we want to do we want that to be the whole pie chart, to be the whole enchilada? I think a lot of us really want it to be the whole enchilada. Next one is relationships. We talked about that earlier. How much time do we have with adult parents? How much time do we have with our kids, whether they're young kids or adult kids? How much more time do we have with our friends? And we want to make the most of that. So that's number 3, is just relationships. Number 4 is just pursuing passions. And many people tell me, the reason I'm not retiring is I don't know what else I would do. And I hear that a lot. So know that that's normal, know that that's common, but also know that there is this life outside of work. And sometimes as we get older, the demands of our work are such that it's hard to find other passions. It's hard to maintain hobbies and maintain other passions. And so unless we're going to work until the day that we die, at some point we all need to go through this transition into retirement, which can be challenging, right? There's 4 phases to transitioning into retirement. The first one feels great. It just feels good to not have to wake up early, not have to go into work. It's called the vacation phase. But phases 2 and 3 are a little tough. Phase 2 is a feeling of loss, a loss of identity. We've lost some of our friends at work. We've lost our routine. And then phase 3 is we start iterating and trying new things. And oftentimes the first things that we try are not going to work. But later on, we'll find some that do. And then the 4th is we have our new life. We've successfully transitioned, and we would no longer want to go back to work, right? So that's the transition side of things. That's the work side of things, giving us the time for passions and hobbies, and if we don't have those, to develop it. And then the last one is just taking that leap. It's a mental challenge, right? Yes, working to save enough money to retire is really hard to do, and it's even harder today. But equally as difficult, equally as challenging is the mental challenge to actually make that leap, to stop moving the goalpost for our finances and say, well, my goal was $1 million, but you know what, if I had $1.5 million, then I'd really be comfortable. And that's normal as well, but you're never going to feel comfortable. You have to do the plan, be confident that you have the money that you need in order to sustain your lifestyle. But at some point, we have to take this leap of faith. We have to say enough is enough, or maybe I'm close enough. It's not financial advice. I don't know your situation, but I do want to encourage you to work with a professional to know for sure, do you have enough? And I also want you to enjoy the journey until you can retire. And that's why I made this video up here, 7 things to stop doing in your 50s and 60s in order to enjoy your journey more until you retire.